That voice in your head telling you life isn't fair. It's not wisdom, it's addiction. You've become dependent on complaining, the same way others depend on substances. And just like any addiction, it's destroying your life from the inside out while convincing you it's helping. The worst part? You don't even realize you're doing it. Every conversation becomes a catalog of grievances. Every setback becomes evidence the universe conspires against you. Every challenge becomes proof you're uniquely cursed. You've crafted an entire identity around being life's victim. And that identity is your prison. This is about more than positive thinking or gratitude journals. This is about recognizing a fundamental truth that will either liberate you or destroy you. You have two choices right now. Face what you've become, or keep pretending the world owes you something it will never give. Here's what's really happening in your mind. Every time something goes wrong, your brain immediately searches for someone to blame. The weather, your boss, the economy, your childhood, the system, anyone except the person making the choices. This isn't natural human behavior. It's learned helplessness masquerading as insight. You've trained yourself to find problems instead of solutions, to collect evidence of unfairness instead of opportunities for growth. You scroll through social media building case studies of why others have it easier. You rehearse conversations about how overwhelmed you are. You've become a professional victim, and victims never win. The dangerous part isn't the complaining itself. It's how complaining rewrites your neural pathways. Every complaint reinforces a story that you're powerless, that circumstances control your life, that other people determine your happiness. You're literally programming yourself for failure while believing you're just being realistic. But here's the deeper truth Aurelius Maximus once shared with me during one of our conversations about human nature. He looked at me with those piercing steel blue eyes that seemed to see through everything and said something that changed my perspective forever. The man who complains about the storm has forgotten he chose to leave his house. His weathered face carried the calm authority of someone who had observed this pattern in countless people. They mistake commentary for action and opinion for influence. Quote, "That's when I understood. Complaining isn't processing. It's procrastinating. It's not healing. It's hiding. You're using complaints as a drug to avoid the discomfort of taking responsibility, because responsibility is terrifying. Responsibility means you can't blame anyone else. Responsibility means you have to act. Think about your last complaint. Really examine it. What were you avoiding by focusing on what's wrong? What action were you delaying by building a case for why action wouldn't work anyway? What responsibility were you transferring to circumstances, other people, or fate itself? The Stoics understood something profound about human psychology. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But here's what most people miss about that quote. It's not about controlling outcomes. It's about controlling responses. And complaining is just a response, one you can change. Every complaint contains hidden information. It reveals what matters to you, where your standards lie, what you value enough to feel frustrated about. But instead of using complaints as data for action, you're using them as substitutes for action. You're mistaking the identification of problems for the solving of problems. Marcus Vail understood this transformation deeply. I remember watching him struggle with his own patterns of blame and frustration. That distinctive square jawline with its small cleft would tighten every time he talked about obstacles in his path. He was intense and disciplined in every area except his thinking. He controlled his body, his schedule, his environment. But his mind was controlled by his complaints. The breakthrough came when he realized complaining was just another form of laziness, mental laziness. Instead of investing energy in solutions, He was spending it on stories about why solutions wouldn't work. Instead of taking small steps forward, he was taking elaborate steps backward into justification and blame. I wasn't unlucky, he told me months later. I was addicted to being unlucky. I was addicted to the certainty that came with having someone else to blame. Taking responsibility felt dangerous because it meant I might fail, and it would be my fault. Seneca had a phrase for this: every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Your complaining isn't just describing your current reality, it's creating your future reality. Every complaint is a vote for more of what you don't want. Every blame session is a choice to remain powerless. But what if you redirected that energy? What if instead of cataloging problems, you collected solutions? What if instead of building cases for why life is unfair, you built strategies for how to navigate unfairness? What if you became as obsessed with taking action as you currently are with avoiding it? The shift starts with one simple recognition. You are not your circumstances. You are not your challenges. You are not your setbacks or your disadvantages or your limited resources. You are the consciousness observing all of these things. And consciousness always has choice. Here's your first practice. For the next 24 hours, catch yourself in the act of complaining. Not to judge it. Not to stop it immediately. Just to notice it. Notice how it feels in your body. Notice what you're avoiding by focusing on what's wrong. Notice the relief you get from transferring responsibility somewhere else. Then ask one question. What action would make this complaint unnecessary? Not what would fix everything. Not what would make life perfect. What single action would make this specific complaint irrelevant? Then take that action, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, even if it's uncomfortable. The person who takes imperfect action is infinitely more powerful than the person who crafts perfect complaints. The person who tries and fails is infinitely more alive than the person who explains why trying won't work. The person who accepts responsibility for their responses is infinitely more free than the person who demands the world change to accommodate their preferences. You were never unlucky. You were never cursed. You were never uniquely disadvantaged. You just trained yourself to see obstacles instead of opportunities, problems instead of possibilities, endings instead of beginnings. But training can be undone. Patterns can be rewritten. Identities can be transformed. The question isn't whether you can change. The question is whether you're ready to give up the strange comfort of powerlessness for the terrifying freedom of choice. Whether you're ready to trade your addiction to complaining for an addiction to creating. The next step changes everything.